Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Talk Speak. Get ready, because today we're setting our sights on a city in Japan that's, well, it's really quite unlike any other, Nagasaki. We've been digging through this fantastic stack of sources you shared with us, just packed with details on its incredible history, vibrant culture, food that looks amazing, and some really useful tips for exploring it yourself. It's tucked away in Kyushu, Nagasaki, and it's not your typical Japanese metropolis. The sources, they paint this picture of a stunning port city, embraced by mountains, famous for those dramatic harbor views.
Yeah, that $1 million night view they mentioned. It sounds breathtaking.
Exactly, but what really jumped out, I think, from these sources is its uniquely layered identity. This is a place where, for centuries, Japanese tradition didn't just meet, but really fused with European influence, Chinese culture, too.
Yeah.
All because it was Japan's main window to the outside world.
For a long time, the only window.
Right, the only one.
And that history, as the exclusive gateway, that's really our mission today. We want to pull out the threads from these sources that show how that shaped Nagasaki, how it became this resilient, complex, and frankly, incredibly interesting place it is now. We want to uncover those key nuggets, the surprising facts, the reasons behind its unique culture and food, and those stories of just profound resilience. These sources give us a much deeper view, way beyond the usual tourist stuff.
Totally. So let's imagine you're stepping off the train, you're ready to explore. We're going to cover that first arrival, visit the absolute must-see sites that tell the city's story, taste the flavors born from centuries of mixing things up.
Definitely tasting the flavors.
Oh, yeah. And delve into those deeper historical themes that really define its soul. And then we'll wrap up with some practical insights straight from these pages to help you plan your own adventure. Okay, let's unpack this. So the adventure for most visitors, it starts right at the main entry point, Nagasaki Station, Nagasaki Eki. Our sources describe it as like the city's pulse. It's the busiest station in the prefecture, a real hub.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about the station, reading through these sources, is how it kind of mirrors the city's own journey. It looks completely modern now, especially, with the Nishi-Kyushu Shinkansen arriving.
With bullet train.
Exactly, but it was damaged in the atomic bombing and rebuilt. So it's a physical symbol, really, of Nagasaki's resilience and its constant development, even after something so immense.
And it sounds super user-friendly for visitors, too. It's where you hop onto the city's famous tram network or catch a bus. Makes it really easy to start exploring.
Very convenient.
Plus, practical things like luggage lockers are right there. So you can just drop your stuff and hit the ground running. It feels like the perfect welcome mat.
Definitely sets you up well.
Okay, so once you've, dropped your bags and you're ready to see the highlights, our sources point to 3 spots. These are absolutely essential, they say, for understanding Nagasaki's story. They capture different facets of its soul. Let's start with the most solemn, but maybe the most important on a global scale.
The Nagasaki Peace Park, Heiwa-kun, and the Atomic Bomb Museum right next to it. The park is described as just this place of profound peace, dedicated to remembering the 1945 bombing.
It sounds very moving.
Yeah. And at its heart is the huge 9.7-meter peace statue. I was really struck by the description of its pose, one arm pointing up like a warning against nuclear weapons, and the other stretched out flat, symbolizing peace. And what's truly poignant, reading the sources, is how they highlight the human element there. The Fountain of Peace, for example. It wasn't just built as a monument, it was specifically to honor the victims who suffered from just unimaginable thirst after the bombing.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a monument with a poem by a young survivor inscribed on it. It just brings that tragedy right to you. And crucially, while it is a memorial, the sources stress it's also a living, active space.
Active how?
Well, it hosts the annual peace ceremony and declaration. It's a platform for global solidarity, a constant call for peace that echoes around the world. It's quite remarkable how a place born from such horror has become such a dynamic symbol for hope.
From that deep reflection, let's shift to a different time, a different vibe. Glover Garden, Guraba Inn. It's perched up on a hill overlooking the harbor. This place feels like stepping back into another era.
Gorgeous views, apparently.
Supposedly, yeah. The centerpiece is the Glover residence, which the sources note is Japan's oldest Western-style wooden building, home to Thomas Blake Glover, a Scottish merchant.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of Nagasaki, Glover Garden isn't just one house. It's more like a curated snapshot of a really pivotal moment in Japanese history. It's an open-air museum, really. It has other Western homes that were moved there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Ringer and alt houses, too. So it paints a picture of that foreign community that was so instrumental during Japan's big push for modernization, the Meiji Restoration.
Right, when everything changed.
Exactly. And Glover himself, he wasn't just, selling things. He was involved in key industries, shipbuilding, coal mining, really driving that change. And yeah, the sources do mention that rumor linking the garden to the opera Madame Butterfly. Adds a bit of romantic mystique, I suppose.
Always is.
But fundamentally, it just perfectly shows Nagasaki's role as a catalyst for Japan opening up to the world.
And then we go back even further in time, right into the heart of Japan's isolation period, by exploring Dejima. Describe this place, that famous man-made island, fan-shaped.
Yeah, very distinctive shape.
And the sources are crystal clear. For over 200 years, during the Edo period when Japan basically shut itself off, Dejima was the only place the West, well, primarily the Dutch, could trade and interact directly.
Which really raises that important question the sources touch on. Just how significant was this one very tightly controlled point of contact? Because Dejima wasn't just about trading silk and sugar, although that was important.
What else then?
Critically, it was the pipeline for Rangaku Dutch learning. So Western science, medicine, all sorts of knowledge flowed into Japan through this tiny island. The sources call it a highly controlled filter, which sounds about right.
A filter, yeah.
And the island's own physical history, built on reclaimed land, then later swallowed up by the city, and now being carefully restored piece by piece, that whole journey really symbolizes Japan's shifting relationship with the outside world. It's like a tangible historical bridge.
Fascinating. And just a quick note for anyone planning a trip. One of our source tables, Table 1, gives a super handy list of these places and the tram stops you need, makes getting around much easier.
Good practical tip.
All right, now for my favorite kind of deep dive, the food. And it's probably no surprise that Nagasaki's food scene is just as layered and fused as its history.
Makes sense.
You absolutely have to start with Nagasaki Champon. The sources basically call it the city's soul food. And honestly, when you see pictures, or even better, taste it, you get why. It's this really hearty noodle soup just loaded with pork, seafood, veggies in this rich, unique broth.
Sounds amazing.
And the place to try it, the birthplace, is Shikairo.
Ah, yes, Shikairo. The origin story from the sources is actually quite touching. It's food that was born out of necessity and compassion, really. The founder, Chin Haijun, created it back in 1899.
Okay.
He made it specifically to give the poor Chinese students living in Nagasaki a nutritious, affordable, and really filling meal.
That's a great story.
Isn't it? And Shikairo is still there, still serving the authentic stuff, apparently with fantastic views over the harbor, too. And the name Champon, it's said to come from a word meaning to mix or to blend. Yeah, it perfectly describes the dish, obviously, but also, the city itself. All those mixed ingredients, mixed cultures.
And for the sweet tooth, or maybe the essential souvenir, it has to be Castella cake. Casutera. This sweet sponge cake, it arrived with the Portuguese way back in the 16th century.
A long history.
A very long history. And the sources point to Fukusaya as one of the most famous, maybe the oldest maker. They date back to 1624.
Wow, 1624. Fukusaya's Castella, according to these descriptions, it's known for a very specific texture. It's incredibly moist, very fine, often sweetened with honey or maybe mizuame syrup. But their signature thing is leaving the coarse zarame sugar crystals still crunchy at the bottom of the cake.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Crunchy bits.
Me too. And this cake, its history is tied directly to Nagasaki's trade. Sugar was a real luxury back then, imported through the port during the Edo period, which made Castella quite an expensive treat.
Right. Not an everyday thing.
Exactly. So it's a delicious, edible example of that concept, wakan yosai, the Japanese spirit, adopting Western techniques or knowledge, in this case, delicious, delicious knowledge.
And for a really unique dining event, the sources highlight Shippoku Ryori. This is described as a formal banquet cuisine, a vibrant fusion of Japanese, Chinese, and Western styles. They even have a word for it, wakaran cuisine.
Wakaran, Japanese, Chinese, Dutch, basically.
Exactly. And what makes it look different is that it's traditionally served communally. Everyone eats together around a big round table.
Yeah, that's quite unusual for traditional Japanese formal dining. The sources mention Kagetsu as a particularly historic, atmospheric place to try Shippoku. Apparently, historical figures like Sakamoto Ryoma even dined there.
No way.
That's what they say. And the meal itself sounds fantastic. It often starts with a special ceremonial soup, ohire soup, and features signature dishes like tobani, that rich braised pork belly.
Pork belly.
Right. But that communal round table aspect is really key. It reflects Nagasaki's more open, sort of cosmopolitan social vibe, which developed over centuries of interacting with foreigners. This food isn't just dinner, it's like a tangible, delicious expression of the city's whole melting pot identity.
Love it. And again, for planning, Table 2 in our sources gives a nice breakdown of these food items, including a helpful price guide if you're thinking of trying them, which, let's be honest, you probably should.
Absolutely.
Okay, so beyond the famous sights and the incredible food, these sources really dig into Nagasaki's deeper soul. There's this resilience woven through its history that still defines the city today.
That's right. The sources really emphasize Nagasaki's founding as a dedicated port back in 1571, and its unique exclusive role during Japan's isolation period, Sakoku. And this wasn't just about ships coming and going, allowing foreign residents, managing that limited contact. It fostered this unique tolerance, a kind of societal flexibility in Nagasaki that, well, that other Japanese cities just didn't have back then.
That makes sense.
And that mindset really meant Nagasaki was uniquely prepared to embrace and even lead Japan's rapid modernization once the country fully reopened.
And layered onto that, there's the really profound history of Christianity in the city. It arrived early with figures like Francis Xavier. Nagasaki even got nicknamed Little Rome at one point.
Little Rome, yeah. But then came just brutal persecution. It drove believers underground. They became the hidden Christians, the Kakure Kirishitan.
Such a difficult history.
Incredibly difficult. And what's really powerful in these sources is the connection they draw between that history, that enduring suffering for your beliefs, and the city's experience with the atomic bombing.
Ah, I see the parallel.
Exactly. Both stories involve unimaginable pain, followed by just extraordinary resilience and this steadfast holding on to core values, faith in one case, and that fervent desire for peace in the other. This dual history of resilience, shaped by both religious persecution and atomic devastation, it feels absolutely central to understanding Nagasaki's identity today.
And contrasting with that, very profound history, the sources also paint a picture of a city that really knows how to celebrate. Its festival scene sounds incredibly vibrant, a real expression of that layered culture.
Oh, yeah.
Just looking through the list here. We've got Nagasaki Kunchi in October. It's over 380 years old. Dynamic performances, dragon dances, even these huge whale floats. You can clearly see the Dutch and Chinese influences there.
Wow, whale floats.
Right. Then there's the Nagasaki Lantern Festival for Chinese New Year, late Jan or Feb. Absolutely spectacular, apparently. The whole city lit up by 15,000 lanterns, plus parades, more dragon dances.
15,000 lanterns.
Incredible. And then there's Shiro Nagashi on August 15th. It's a unique Obon event, sending off ancestral spirits on these handmade boats.
Yeah.
But the key part is accompanied by, well, the sources basically say it's a staggering amount of firecracker.
Firecrackers for Obon.
Apparently. Enough that our sources even suggest bringing earplugs for that one.
Okay, noted. But those festivals, especially Kunchi and the Lantern Festival, they sound like living proof of that walk-around cultural blend we talked about.
Exactly.
It's not just history locked away in museums. It's alive and kicking on the streets. And Shiro Nagashi, well, that just sounds like pure, explosive local character.
Definitely memorable.
The sources also give a quick mention to traditional crafts as tangible legacies of those old trade connections and imported techniques. Things like Mikawachiyaki pottery, that elegant blue and white porcelain, and Nagasaki Beko, the beautiful tortoiseshell craftwork, which used materials and techniques that came via the trade routes.
And digging a bit deeper in the sources, you find these charming, sort of unique little quirks about daily life, too.
Like what?
Like those Obon firecrackers at gravesites. Seems it's really a thing. And the city's pride in having lots of Japan's firsts because of its history. And descriptions of the people being particularly friendly and welcoming.
Which makes sense, given that history of interaction.
Totally. It sounds like a place where people live quite closely together, harmonizing with that hilly landscape around the harbor.
Yes, and it's important to note, as the sources suggest, that many of these specific local customs, like the firecrackers, or even some food traditions that maybe aren't as famous as Champon, are direct results of that deep, long-standing interaction with Chinese culture specifically. It just shows how integrated those foreign influences became.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the practical side. If you're listening and thinking, right, I need to go to Nagasaki, these sources have some excellent planning tips for you.
Good stuff.
First up, getting around town. The streetcar system, the tram, or Roman dencha, is highlighted as being super charming and really convenient. People affectionately call it the Chin Chin dencha.
Chin Chin Densha, love it.
Riding it sounds easy, too.
Yeah.
Hop on at the back, pay your fare at the front when you get off, and the fare is flat. Really reasonable $150 for adults.
That's great value.
And good news, if you travel around Japan a lot, you can usually just use your regular IC card, like Suica or Passmo. Makes it seamless.
Yeah, the sources really stress that the tram isn't just transport, it's part of the Nagasaki experience. It covers most of the key tourist spots and that 600 one-day pass. Excellent value if you plan on hopping on and off a fair bit.
Definitely worth getting.
Oh, and Table 3 in the sources conveniently lists the different lines and major stops. Invaluable for planning your sightseeing route.
Perfect. And if you're flying in, getting from Nagasaki Airport sounds straightforward too. Just hop on the limousine bus.
Easy peasy. Now, thinking about when to visit. Seasons matter, of course. The sources suggest spring, for cherry blossoms, and autumn, with its mild weather and that big Kunchi festival we mentioned, are often considered the ideal times.
Yeah, autumn sounds great.
But don't rule out other seasons. Winter has the incredible Lantern Festival, and summer, well, it offers coastal activities, though you should be prepared for some rain, potentially. And obviously, pack accordingly for the weather.
Right.
The best time really depends on what you're looking for, perfect weather, or maybe those specific cultural events.
Makes sense. What about where to stay?
The sources indicate there are options for pretty much any budget. You've got business hotels near the station, which are super convenient, and then guest houses or hostels if you're watching your yen. Interestingly, the sources also point out the recent arrival of some high-class international hotels, like a Hilton and a Marriott.
Oh, interesting. So it's growing its appeal.
Yeah, it suggests Nagasaki is attracting a wider range of visitors now, probably helped by that new Shinkansen connection and maybe a push for more tourism and business travel. The sources suggest staying either near the station or maybe in the Chinatown area for the best access to transport and food.
Good tips. And finally, some fun, practical little nuggets from what the sources call the Traveler's Notebook section. First, pack comfortable shoes. Seriously, Nagasaki is known for its slopes and hills.
Definitely need comfy shoes.
Second, if you were there for Shuro Nagashi on August 15th, remember those firecrackers. Maybe seriously consider packing earplugs.
Good advice.
And maybe, most importantly, just embrace that incredible cultural blend, be open to it all, and maybe learn a simple Japanese greeting to engage with the locals, who are apparently famously friendly.
Always a good idea.
So pulling everything together from these sources, Nagasaki really emerges as this city deeply shaped by its unique history as an international port. It's incredibly resilient, culturally vibrant, and just genuinely welcoming. It carries the weight of a really profound, past the bombing, the persecution history, but it lives very much in the present with this powerful message of peace and an enduring, undeniable beauty.
It truly sounds like a city of incredible layers, born from both isolation and interaction, resilience, and a kind of fusion you just won't find anywhere else in Japan.
Yeah, these sources really capture the spirit of a place that just calls out to be explored. To walk its historic streets, climb those slopes, savor those unique flavors, and really feel that palpable message of peace and resilience that seems to permeate the city.
The unique magic of Nagasaki is definitely waiting there for you to discover.
And here's a final thought for you to ponder, something to chew on. Considering Nagasaki's almost unbelievable history as Japan's single window to the West for over 200 years, that period of intense, controlled isolation and exchange, how might that unique experience still subtly echo today? How might it influence the city's character, or maybe even Japan's broader perspective on the outside world, centuries after that isolation officially ended?
That's a fascinating question.
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. See you next time.